it sounds like that you're doing the brokerage business very different than most brokerages.
Yeah.
Because most brokerages, they thrive on the more agents that they have, the more agents paying this, the more agents that are sitting or not doing anything. It's just like a volume count. And it sounds like to me that you're really much more interested in, attracting people that fit your brand, that are doing business, and that are really looking to help the consumer.
Correct.
Not just do it's not a transaction.
Correct.
It's not this many units. It's probably
Correct.
We help this many families.
Yeah, we're much more. So we're privately held. My partner and I are the investor, original owners in the business. Our whole senior team owns part of the company, but we didn't have venture backing. Started this thing with our own money. And so we make decisions a little bit differently than most brokerages, not as a fault, but just we don't have dividends that we're worried about Wall Street returns. So for us, it's about bringing in the right people to help operate the brand. And so what I can with 100% certainty tell you, and anybody who's ever been to one of our events will say the same thing, our culture is very unique in this industry. Because we are selective about who owns a NextHome office, there's a much more family-oriented culture. And the people here are, as to your point, they're very focused on doing things for the consumer. It's not always about the transaction or another deal. It's much more about the end result for the customer. And so we've built the business around that. Had we gone a different direction, we probably would be 2 or 3 times our size. But we've built this thing on organic growth. I'd say probably 40% of our franchisees came from referrals from other franchisees. And so it's been this much more organic business model. We have never acquired or purchased an office to come in. Every single office in our organization came in willingly on their own, paid the same fee to become part of the company. And so it's very much around the culture of our organization. It's been fun to watch.
I love that. Well, I wore this orange because I saw that orange.
I noticed.
Color. So I wore this just for you. And I got to tell you, we talked a little bit before we started to record. I was in Columbus, Ohio, and Vadim, who is the NextHome in Columbus, was part of the group that brought me to Columbus, Ohio to speak to their agents there. And he is an amazing extension of your brand. When you talk about culture and family, mm-hmm. and you talk about somebody who just is all about the consumer, I think that he exemplifies that.
He does. Yeah, he's a good guy. I hope he's not listening to this because it'll get to his head. But yeah, he's definitely an amazing human being. And by the way, so I was there a month before you were, and I heard that you were coming. I was like, oh, you guys are in for it, man. She's going to be amazing. So thank you for doing that. And you're right. And it's what's cool about when you get to meet some of the people, you can see some of that culture. And I always tell people that, your business starts from the top. So however your leadership team is operating is going to define the culture of your business. And so if you have a mentality of anybody can come in the door, you will have no culture. Right. You can't have one. So if you're much more particular about it, making sure you're bringing agents in that share the same values as you do, then you'll actually will build something unique. It may not be as big, but you'll actually love it more. So,
let me ask you a question. So, you've been in real estate forever. Mm-hmm. I've been here since Jesus was a baby. It sounds like you have been too. Mm-hmm. But let me ask you a question. So what is a practice that you see right now that in 5 years we will not see in the real estate industry?
Oh, man, so I'm going to irritate some of your viewers. Look, we're at a really big crossroads in this business. And I've can say this because with respect to a lot of the people that are probably listening or watching, I've been in this longer. There's been all of these conversations about lying over the hill and just changes coming to the industry and realtors going away and all of this stuff. And yeah, there's been threats and the industry has changed and adapted, but I think we are at a very tough spot. We've had really bad PR about our industry the past few years. Some of it deserved, some of it just the mainstream media doing an exceptionally good job of not getting a single fact straight. And couple that with the fact that there's too many people with a license. There just is. Like I say that lovingly, but if you're doing, less than a deal a year, like this isn't the business for you. And so when I make this comment, the industry needs to figure out a different path. It needs to get more professional, whether that's through regulation, which I'm not a fan of, but maybe that's what it takes. Whether it's unfortunately through more litigation, which I do believe is coming because our industry does not learn. Um, but a lot of it has to do with brokers making the choice and if what kind of company they want to operate. But I think you're going to see significant consolidation. I think we're at a crossroads now where we have to decide what we want to be to the consumer. They want us, proven by every stat that the use of a realtor is higher than it's ever been, but they are very much questioning what the hell we do. And they have every right to do it because they're looking at it going, real estate's very expensive. Here's what it costs to buy. Here's what I'm paying my realtor. What are they doing for me? Most of what we do is behind the scenes, which I've been very vocal about. We have to make this much more of a forward facing
Oh,
conversation,
yeah.
sharing much more about what we do, or the people are going to question it. You've got lawyers who are saying they can do it better than we can, even though I think that's funny, but fine. Um, and so, and you've got associations and MLSs, they're all trying to figure out their spot. Everybody is. So I think the industry in 5 years will look different. I think you're going to see like what I talk about in my keynotes. I think the single biggest thread that I've seen in my entire career that I am actually concerned about for the first time is Rocket's acquisition of Mr. Cooper, not Redfin. Two very different conversations. Redfin is an important acquisition for them, but that's top of funnel. Here's what the real concern is. We all know this stat. It's something along the lines of 80% of consumers said they would use their same agent again, but only 20% do. It's somewhere in that number. I don't know what the most recent one is. We as an industry absolutely suck, technical term, at following up with our clients and staying in touch with them. We're awful at it. Rocket has a very specific slide in their investor deck. And it's specifically this. They are talking about how Mr. Cooper, the servicer of 1 out of every 6 mortgages in the United States, they want an 83% recapture rate when they're servicing those loans. In other words, over the 8 to 14 years that a homeowner owns that property, Rocket is going to figure out how to incubate that homeowner to sell that house, buy that house, finance that house, do title with that house, all of it all over again through their own ecosystem. And if we don't think that a company with $800 million in the bank and tech beyond anything our industry can even comprehend isn't going to try to figure out how to crack that code, then we're dreaming. Like we're just being completely naive to reality. So when I make this comment, I think between 5 to 10 years, you will see significant consolidation of the industry. The broker split's going to feel more pressure than it already has. Agents are going to feel pressure on their compensation. And the only way to make up that difference is through volume. So what I kind of call teamerages will get bigger. I think you'll see most single agents that are not doing nearly enough production. There won't be enough margin in the business because Rocket wants to cut that average transaction cost from 40,000 down to 20. That's also in their investor deck. Whether they hit it or not, it's not the point. The point is the practice is moving this direction. These are all things that we as an industry have got to figure out fast. How do we explain what we do? How do we justify what we do? How do we maintain relationship with that client? How do we make sure they're willing to pay what will be perceived, in my opinion, as a premium for convenience and service, 2 things that the consumer will pay for? How do all of these things come together when you've got big, massive Wall Street firms that are going to try and crack that code? And so I think you'll see significant consolidation in the brokerage space. You'll see consolidation in the agent space. I think you'll see a lot more teams get even larger, but the margins get smaller. And then how do you attach ancillary revenues? And that's the thing no one's talking about deeply enough. Every single team will have to figure out how to attach, which by the way is not illegal. It's what Rocket does, or is what they're planning to do. But how do they attach mortgage, title, and escrow, home warranty, insurance, and receive a piece of that as well, fully RESPA compliant? But how do they pick up the difference in those margins? Because that's going to be the name of the game.
Well,
That was a
that was
lot.
a mouthful.
That was a lot. Well, you asked.
Do you know what? I got to tell you, and you saw me over here furiously making notes. So, because it's interesting that you say that. So, Mr. Cooper bought one of my mortgages on my investment property. And every time that I log in to my portal for Mr. Cooper, it says, "Are you thinking of buying or selling real estate?"
Mm-hmm.
Every single time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then it says, if you check yes, because I wanted to see what it would say. If you check yes, it says, what would you do with this? Would you sell this current home or would you keep it? And so literally
They're starting the incubation.
every time you log in, they're reminding you, like, when was the last time you picked up the phone and called your past client and said, "Hey, are you thinking about buying or selling real estate?" And Mr. Cooper is asking it every single time you log into their portal.
Yeah, and imagine if next is, so remember these acquisitions will be done by the end of the year pending SEC approval, but imagine if you're going, yeah, I'm interested in selling it. And they're going, okay, great. So we've got a bundled package.
Yeah.
And just imagine it just being this. The average real estate transaction currently right now, when you use, a realtor, you're going to pay X in compensation. You're going to pay X to process the loan. You're going to pay X for title. This is the average compensation. We'll use their number of $40,000 for an average price home in the US. We can do it for 20 when you do it inside Rocket's ecosystem.
And do you think that Rocket will hire real estate agents?
They just did. They just got it. The acquisition of Redfin gave them employee-based agents. So that's the part people aren't paying attention to as well. So if you look at the rules, it's a RESPA issue when you're an independent contractor. It's not a RESPA issue when you're an employee of the company. You can bundle services because you work for the organization as a W-2 based employee. Well, what is Redfin agents? A large portion of them are employees. I don't know Rocket's business model, by the way. I'm speculating just from reading the same stuff that Wall Street people read, but it would make sense that they've got they've got, to your point, the login. Here's what it is. Would you like to talk to a Redfin agent? And while they're on the phone, they're going, we can absolutely list that home for you. We can also have one of our agents help you find another property, and we'll do everything in-house, and we can save you roughly $20,000. Now, I'm not suggesting everybody's going to do that, but I am suggesting there's a lot of people who will take that up. And I think there's like a 50% savings, 20 grand, 20 grand. That's a lot of money. I don't care who you are. Yeah. So that's what we're facing over the next length of time. But it's not just Rocket. Zillow's been building a super app ecosystem for some time. And the one no one's talking about is ICE. Who's doing the same system from another way into it from a data perspective. So we've all been talking about an end-to-end solution, but there are big players with big capital who are building it or have built it and are going to be coming into the market. My biggest concern is, we all know this. I've said this before, and for Zillow people, don't get mad at me, but if you want to get rid of the portals today, all you had to do was maintain the relationship with your customer. If you maintain the relationship with your customer, they don't go back and become a lead on a big national real estate portal.
Well, it's so true.
It's just pretty basic. Like, if the customer is thinking about selling, instead of forgetting about you because you haven't talked to them in 8 years and then going to becoming a lead that's been now sold to a new agent for 40% referral fee, just maintain that relationship. Well, okay. Now imagine a company servicing your loan, to your point, where you see them every month and they're incubating you and doing the things that our industry should be doing. Yeah, that's a threat. That's a big threat. Absolutely. Yeah.
And when you think about they service 1 in 6 mortgages, like, that's a lot.
And they'll probably acquire more.
Yeah. And think about because they bought Flagstar. That's how I got to them, was they bought all of the loans from Flagstar. Yeah. But what's really interesting to me, I have to tell you, this is not where I thought our conversation was going to go, but I'm really happy that it's going here, because you're really giving me a lot to think about and a lot to talk about. But let me ask you this. What do you think about the data that's uploaded into MLS? The pictures, the disclosures, the floor plans, the videos. What do you think about all of that data that's being sold here, there, and everywhere?
as far as whether the MLS should do that or not, or
What
where
is
specific?
what is the risk to the seller? What's the risk to the seller? What's the
Oh
risk to
man,
the agent?
it's
You're
a big.
uploading your disclosure and you're talking about insurance claims, or you're talking about additions that you made to the property, things that maybe were not permitted. You're putting 100 pictures of 123 Banana Street online, and then your municipality says, "Oh, wait a minute, they don't have a permit for a pool house."
Man, it's a good question, right? So this just goes into the debate of, what is the MLS what the MLS should be? It's a good question. Who owns the data? Privacy issues. We obviously just got. I'm sure you were aware of this or talked about it. We just got a massive pass on one-to-one consent. That would have been just an absolute nightmare for realtors. And by the way, I'm sure you've heard the same thing. 99% of realtors had no idea what I was talking about when I brought up one-to-one consent. That literally, people are probably going to look it up right now. That we literally dodged a bullet on. I think it's a very good question. And what is the license agreement that you signed? What does it state when you sign? Which I'll add this in. You can look up a Deloitte study that I put into in one of my keynotes, because everyone's talking about informed consent. Like, oh yeah, well, as long as the seller says yes, then it's fine. It's informed consent. I'm like, stop. When was the last time your seller read anything you put in front of them? You put that crap in DocuSign, they hit start, sign, and move on with their lives. Deloitte study shows 90% of American consumers don't read anything that they actually sign. Anyways, I think it's a good question. What is the MLS doing with the data? Where are they sending it out? Where's it going to? What's the revenue they're generating off of that? Should that be coming back to you? Should your seller know that information? Those are all big debates that we're having. And also, every MLS operates differently. So they're not all operating the same. You've got obviously NAR governed MLSs. You have non-NAR governed MLSs that have different policies. The sad part is that everyone's trying to figure out how to make a buck off these 4 million transactions that are happening annually right now. Everyone's trying to figure out how not to pay fees or get their fees lowered. Everyone's questioning the value proposition of an MLS or association. I will add this in a couple of different contexts. My view is that we need to be thinking much more long term about MLSs. Certainly, there should be a lot less of them. I've been not shy about my opinion. There should be massive consolidation in that. But at the same time, MLSs need to get to a place where there is more opportunity for companies to create more products and services and be more progressive to represent the realtor. For example, there's not a single brokerage website other than Redfin that is anywhere close to competing with Zillow or Realtor or Homes.com from a consumer perspective. It couldn't even come in the same planet. You can go to some of these sites and get so much data where, as an example, in the MLS, I think the MLS should have more data. Like, for example, I own a house in the mountains, and I didn't realize that in the winter, it's $1,000 a month to fill it with propane. Like, I would like to know that when I bought it. It'd be nice to have that information online so I can go, oh, well, here's the expenses, but I didn't realize I'm going to spend $1,000 a month to fill a propane tank, right? So we need to be thinking much differently about it. But the truth is, since you asked, the gold of the future is data. That's just where we are. The data and the ability to understand that data and what is available in that data is where there's significant revenue, because it allows people to spend less to get more qualified leads or get deeper in a funnel based upon the information you have. And here's the big one: what happens if the MLS goes away? I mean that genuinely, because what happens if all of a sudden there's 15 brokerages that are controlling 90% of the listing inventory and there is no MLS? What do you do
Yeah,
then?
I mean that sounds crazy.
Not really, because I mean that's where we're actually headed. If people can talk about CCP all they want, but the reality is what we're talking about long term, if you put all the chess pieces together, is destroying the very repository that we spent 40 years building, because it will end up being what my grandfather had, which is 2 or 3 companies in a market that dominate all the inventory and they don't share data.
Oh yes, I started in real estate when there were books, but it's very interesting to look at, and you can argue clear cooperation, 6 ways to Sunday, and pocket listings and private listings and all of that kind of stuff. You can argue it many different ways.